headlines up, and those headlines lasted, what, about 40 minutes?
Yes.
Stop the presses. Liren beats Magnus Carlsen. All of China's happy, and 40 minutes later, okay, Magnus is back
in
angry.
business. Yes.
So he will have to be very careful. His Liren, as Magnus now winning 2 in a row. He's also the kind of player who could win 5 in a row.
Exactly.
And he's 20 points ahead right now, by the way. 20.
In the match score, yeah. And the players are playing very quickly. In the match between Fabiano and Grishuk, where we saw a lot of Catalans, Fabi was putting his bishop on d6. Magnus goes for the classical approach by putting his bishop on e7. Castles, castles. I'm just going a little bit slower than the players to trying to understand the nuances. Come on, I'm clicking.
Bit of a pause, by the way, by Liren, and before he played the move e4.
Right here, just a second. After castles, knight d7, bishop c3. That's a different approach. I think everybody and his brother actually has been playing queen c2 in this position. Bishop c3, b6, very quickly played, and we're catching up with the players after knight takes c3. Yes?
Bishop b7 and rook e1.
Almost a Petrosian Nimzo-Indian with a2, a3, but white hasn't used the tempo a3.
You mean Queen's Indian?
Yeah, Petrosian Queen's Indian. Yeah.
So, except...
I've got the center pawn duo.
Except normally you don't get this bishop from white in that variation, this dark squared bishop. In that line, white usually maintains a dark squared bishop.
Exactly.
I used to play it as black myself, and he uses it to effect, or at least tries to. But contentiously, Ding has decided, I'll give you the dark square bishop. I want the center, and I'm going to see if I can use it. And any c5 break, which is typical for black in this formation, black is always looking for c5, will be met by d5.
Exactly.
If you let black take on d4, your advantage is just fizzles just like that. But if you can get in the move d5, then you can look for a little bit of a squeeze, especially if you take with the pawn on d5 too. Shut down black's bishop on b7 and look to create that protected pass pawn and give him some trouble. Of course, he's going to try to blockade you on the dark squares, but you can't get everything.
Yeah, also a different approach is similar to what you were saying, that if you can get in, if you meet c5 with a move d5, and then maybe this knight gets to post up either on c4 or even c6.
C6 is definitely juicy.
Bishop on g2. So it just feels like c7, c5, the desirable c5, is just not going to be working very well tactically.
And look, he played rook e8.
Yes.
Which is a bit of a waiting move here.
Just asking white to complete his development.
But he's also over a minute on that move, so a big think by Magnus's standards in the game 10.
He's anticipating, if I may, that c5 is going to have to happen, and his rook is now on the open file. But queen c2, now arguing that a rook is going to go to the d file really fast, and Magnus realized there could be some challenges on this, and he played the move c6 instead. And after rook to d1, queen c7, tucking his queen away, he's going to slow play it, put a rook on d8 and look for c5 later. But you get the feeling if Ding could just find the moment to go pip and just touch him real quick right about now, Magnus could find himself a little bit of trouble.
Well, again, this is kind of a typical Slav defense-like setup for black. Black pawns are on c6 and e6. White has a center pawn duo. He's got his space. But black has the two bishops and a solid enough position. Essentially, Magnus wants to complete his develop, play rook d8, move his queen back, maybe play bishop f8, and eventually, he's going to nurse the move c6, c5.
h4, right?
h4 is the standard.
h4 looks like an automatic move.
Right. There's a standard move. Not only does it create luft, but by reaching towards the g5 square, very oftentimes white is playing for e5, knight e4, knight g5, giving him a bit of initiative. By the way, I like the fact that with the move rook f8 to e8, Magnus is giving the f8 square possibility for the knight to defend on h7, and the possibility of playing bishop f8 and setting up a fianchetto fortress on the
Knight on
king side.
f8 stops mate forever, but e5, very committal move. e5, as we mentioned. And will he be able to swing his knight through e4 to g5, and will it mean anything? Because the knight on f8 really, I remember buddies would say, we could stop mate forever.
Yeah.
You're never going to get us. So this move is highly specific, highly committal, and Magnus ignored it. Now h4 on the board and h6, making sure nothing lands on h5 or h6. Similar to what happened in the game Magnus just played, except the white queen is going to have trouble flicking over to g4, and even if it got there, he has no bishop h6 tactics.
There's no bishop h6 tactic.
We have no dark squared bishop to sack.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
we go. That concession of the dark square bishop is long term. He's got to win, does white on the light squares, because he's given up the dark square bishop, and his queen did go to e4. By the way, really suggesting, daring almost, the move c5, which is so desirable.
But
Absolutely.
still, we can play d5.
Still d5, but now there's tricks galore.
Yeah. Now you got to look at some tactics. Look at Magnus, by the way, playing with his pieces. You see his 2 pawns in his hand. He's flicking back and forth as he thinks about the next move. Well, it's a pawn and a bishop, actually, as he's trying to figure out what to do next. I wonder if Nakamura will be annoyed by this, or Fabi will be annoyed seeing Magnus do that. But we see Magnus do that often.
Yeah.
We're just, Jennifer and I having a little discussion about a possible
But there's knight
variation.
b5 and bishop b7, so this is a6, bishop b7, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
Ding Liren took a
pawn on
long
c7
time.
is too strong.
Exactly.
Ding Liren took a long time before he went into this line. Now Magnus taking his time as his clock ticks down, and this opening is extremely critical, extremely sharp. And Magnus decided finally he's not going to play this move c5 just yet, moving his queen.
Because as we mentioned, d5 came with a threat of queen of d6, which was kind of annoying. But now when you play queen b8, c5, d5, and that comes with an extra tempo. We don't have that d6 idea anymore.
Can this knight on f3 move and prevent the move c5?
Knight h2 to coming to g4 seems like a natural square, but instead Ding just removed his queen from the skewer, from the discovered attack, and played queen to g4.
After queen b8, queen g4, Jen? Okay.
This knight on f3 is bugging the life out of me. I want to pick it up and put it on h5. But
Right.
Where does it go?
That would be a good move.
What is the next, what do you play if you're white, Yaz, the next 3 moves?
Well, having committed your pawn to e5, literally, you're making the argument, excuse me, you're making the argument that you want to take control of the d6 square. You're visualizing the d6 square as being a natural outpost to the knight. I agree with you. The knight on f3 is on a bad circuit. Pawns on e5 and d4 squares are occupied. g5 is controlled. Knight coming to d2 to e4.
Bishop to b4 has now been played, and that knight is pinned, and it's going to go. So white, again, that knight on f3 is just bugging me.
Yeah.
Feels like knight h2 might have been a better idea than queen g4, but if you're going to play like this, then maybe you should play knight. No, but knight d2 now, c5 is coming. Knight d2, c5, and maybe
Bishop
put
takes b7. I don't know. Again, I feel that the play has a certain flow to it. So
Okay,
let's
so
say
what
knight
happens
d2,
on
c5.
maybe I should take first on c3 so that this knight doesn't disappear.
Well, you take
Although I do
on
reinforce,
c3.
I do reinforce. And let's say c5. All right, what do you want to do here?
I was going to, again, I'm saying
And
that
this happened
Knight
in
d2 and c5 immediately. Yeah,
Right.
You were talking about the d6 square. Good point.
Right.
Knight d2, c5. So we're back in this line.
Right. And now the question is, should I take on b7 first? If I take on b7, I get your queen off of the e5 square. Your move c5 undermines my e5 pawn. So I can take on b7. And let me just plant my knight on c4. Again, I'm eyeballing and he has taken on b7, did Ding, and he has played not knight c4, rather he played knight e4.
There's going to be an exchange sack.
Well, there's also a knight f6 check on tap that
Magnus ignored it.
and quickly took on d4, by the way, because there is knight d3, knight d6 threat. So by taking on d4, the bishop does defend the d6 square. Ding having a moment pause here because he is looking at that possibility of knight f6 check, and can that lead to any benefits
What do you mean?
for him?
It's virtually forced. What else can he do?
Well, there's rook takes d4, right?
But the e-pawn's hanging.
Rook takes d4, knight takes e5, knight f6 check.
Can I move the king?
And remember, there's a bishop on b4 hanging with a check.
With a what?
Oh,
King
you're
H8.
not playing king f8, you're playing king h8.
Yeah, and I
So
got threats everywhere. Your knight's hanging.
I'll take the rook.
I'll take that.
And, ooh, no, I'm not going to take that. I apologize. I'll take, no, then you've got bishop f8. Sorry. I'm just, I hope I don't end up falling
Hanging a
for
mate
a
in the
check.
background.
Yes,
No, but
we saw that way in the match with Fabi and
No,
Sasha.
but
But
it's not
those
there.
bishop
You're
f8.
covering everything
Yeah.
here. This just got super hyper sharp.
So, okay, just a second. Knight f6.
He did take on d4. He did. The lines were very compelling to Magnus, and he backed his bishop up to e7, not wanting to deal with those crazy lines that we were looking at. That
Not
looked
knight
okay.
takes e5.
No, he played bishop back to e7 and guarded, and now he's threatening knight takes on e5.
He certainly is. That was why I thought this knight on e4 should actually be posted up on c4. It was this exact moment that he...
But he gets to play knight d6 anyway. No?
So knight d6 to play.
Oh, you mean
bishop
to
takes
stop the
d6,
possibility
pawn
of
takes d6.
taking on e5?
Precisely.
Oh, but now we've gone back into the main lines.
Which was knight d6, right?
Knight d6, bishop takes, pawn takes, and knight f6. White's accomplished a lot by getting his queen, his pawn on d6, but how powerful is it?
Queen back to e2.
My
Rook d7 for Magnus.
My first impression is that this pawn is not that powerful. In a previous game, Magnus had a pawn on d3 is black, and it turned out to be very powerful. The game he won in day 1, game 4 of the 30-minute. Here, that's
We
like
see
this
queen
pawn.
e5, rook c8. We have some more moves.
Okay, I will
Queen
refresh my
e5, rook
board.
c8, rook c8. Yeah.
And he's just fully blockaded. Again, knights are ridiculous pieces sometimes. I love them. They're my favorite piece. But you have to nurse those babies, those ponies, because if they're not on great squares, they suck. And that knight on c3 right now is horrible. It's just horrible. No moves, nowhere to go. It needs to be on e5. That's just like, again, I'm moving my knights diagonally.
Yeah.
But that knight needs to be on e5. It just wants to be there. It's got nowhere else to be.
It's a defensive knight. No
And now it's
question
just
about it.
sitting there. It's just
Right.
sitting there as a dead piece. And by the way, it has to stop the move knight to d5. And now king
right.
f8, and Magnus knows it. His knight can always go to d5 at some moment. So that knight actually has a move, although knight d5, knight e4 would happen. So
a3 was played.
a3, king f8, rook d3. And now it's just where...
Rook on 4 to d3.
Oh, man, and he's thinking about piling up on the d-pawn with his own knight as Magnus, but he played rook c4 first. You see that? He wanted to move his knight, but he realized knight e4 was coming, so he's be careful. He signaled his intention. I'm going to move my knight one day.
Well, I love the fact
Queen
that...
e1 played by Ding, who's at a major time disadvantage, by the way.
I love the fact that Magnus is just making gradual inroads, a little bit further, a little bit further. Rook went to c5, rook went to c4.
b5,
controlling.
a5 looks good at some point,
b5 looks like a great way to start.
Ooh, knight e4.
Knight e4 played.
E4.
Ding, kill that piece as fast as possible.
And then knight takes e4.
But
and
I'm-
rook
Takes
looks-
e4, queen d2.
And what's the
then we're back
time
to
situation,
Rook
Jennifer?
c4, Ding Liren has 2 minutes, Magnus has about 4.
I'm not sure about this operation of trading knights
I'm not either.
And now b3,
B3,
rook c2,
because we're in a
queen e3
E3.
immediately by Ding Liren.
We're just
Then queen c5,
major
No trade
majors-
of queens. Forget that idea.
queen f3,
That's
Yep.
right.
Eyeballing.
queen back to c6, queen to
and
e3.
Ding would be happy to get out of this one with a draw.
But why did he play after queen c5, not queen? Oh,
And now rook
f2 is
c5
hanging.
occurred.
F2 was hanging.
That's
Sorry, I
right.
was thinking there was queen e4. I was being a little too aggressive. I was
A4.
hanging my f2 pawn. A4.
And now Magnus on move, 1:45 for Ding Liren, and still over 4 minutes for
4 minutes.
Magnus.
Magnus has got to be calculating.
He played a5.
A5. He's got to be calculating rook d5 at some point. It could happen
Queen
at any
F4.
moment, the move rook to d5, and the pawn will be hanging. So first, king g6, king g8, queen back to e3,
Right? And he's
and now rook down to c2.
c2. Again, Magnus reloading for queen c5.
Everything's solid. rook d5 had a problem with it. Yes, maybe rook c1.
I was going to take it and queen e8 check.
Ding Liren creeping
when
closer.
the king was on f8 at the time.
Rook d2
Okay,
played.
so rook d2
Rook
challenging.
on 3 to
rook.
d2.
Okay.
Rook
Rook c3, rook d3.
Yep.
Isn't there a tactic if I take on d6? No, it doesn't work. Okay, so
Rook takes d6 is met by rook takes d6. You can take my queen, but I'll take your queen.
Rook c5 played.
Very quickly.
Queen f4 immediately from Ding Liren.
okay, now what if
Ding
rook d5?
is in dear.
What happens here? Rook d5.
Rook d5 may be the opportunity that you want to cut the connection of all the
There
pieces.
might be a
depending-
mate on the back. No, rook c1 and.
Yeah, that's a good
No, I
idea.
don't
I like
know.
that. I like that.
Did he play it? Yeah, rook d5. There it is. I've been waiting to see what happens on this
Rook
move.
takes d5, pawn takes d5.
And
Now
this
you're
looks-
mentioning this rook
rook
c1 idea.
c1
Because after queen d6, rook c8 check,
check.
king
There
And
it
he
h7.
has played
Takes.
it. He has played it. Queen takes d6 has been played. These moves all on the board. I think in a straight rook ending, if I go king f1 and king e2 with an active rook, I'm good enough for a draw.
Rook c8 check, king
But-
h7 has been played.
But definitely Magnus Carlsen, a pawn to the
Queen
good.
d4.
He's kept
And
the queens.
and also 2 minutes ahead, 2.5 minutes ahead as well. That's
I think in
problematic.
practical terms, that's really a huge handicap. The position's poor, but defensible, but not with such a time disparity.
But he wants to play h5.
H5 and
he wants to
queen
play
d3.
h5 and then check on that diagonal. That,
So, h5.
that will give tickle chances for sure.
I'm anticipating queen e6, Maurice, in order to meet h5 with queen f5.
You know, what about your b6 pawn?
And he's just played queen e6, by the way. He has played queen e6.
So check first. Queen e4 is a bad move.
No,
Oh no, but
queen
we have to
e4
worry
is an
about
excellent move.
you have to worry about your b pawn though.
And he's done it. Queen
He's
e4.
After a trade, you do have to worry about your b pawn. Your rook will have to go passive.
Queen e4, pawn e4,
Yeah,
rook c6.
this
It's all
one,
been played.
Rook attacking pawn. How does Magnus make anything here? If he has to play rook b7, he's too passive.
That's not the
But
way
he's
you
done
go
it.
for a win.
Yeah, and now
Rook b7,
I thought he would have
king
played
f1.
h5 first. Why didn't he play h5 first? But anyway,
Rook
bringing his
f7
king
king.
quickly, and now f5. But f5 his king is cut off. So Magnus has just bailed. Wait, is this true bailing? Yeah, sort of, kind of, because he's gonna
No, this
he's
is
gonna
a
lose his pawn on a5.
easy-
This is a draw.
Easy draw now. Easy draw for Ding Liren. It's only a question of time.
Well, 38 seconds for Ding Liren and 2 minutes for Magnus.
No
but
win here.
Yeah, 4 versus 4. Easy draw.
Move
It's
the
all
king
about
to
the
e1.
clock.
Come on, move fast.
It's all about the clock now.
All that doesn't matter. Just got to kill that.
Take
And then
G4.
move the G4.
Uh-oh.
Interesting. G4. Whoa,
He's
challenge, and now Magnus
More pawns coming off the board.
gets
Now it's
But
something.
now he's not. Now that Magnus made a little bit of a chance, he's not going to be able to make the time control.
Push the pawn. Come on.
yeah.
I don't know why he
There we
bring his
go.
rook king up. Why did he move his rook first instead of
Yeah.
bringing his king up? But now he's
And
oh
king
man,
F-
he's just dropped another pawn, dude.
Ooh.
Move the king. Just move. No, he's gonna be too
He's
fast.
dead now.
Oh, he
6
did.
seconds.
E4 was a terrible,
really
terrible
bad
move. And
Now he's
now
gonna
it's
lose.
2 versus 1.
And 1 second, yes.
Oh, yes. And there
There
is
we go.
time.
He's just mortified at losing this game.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
He
Another-
had the draw in his pocket.
He certainly
but
did.
too much pressure.
Another amazing example of Magnus Carlsen making something
From nothing.
for nothing. I
No,
mean,
but that was
knowing
really-
There,
that was
it
really
was a
Ding Liren.
question.
It was the clock.
Of the clock.
Yeah.
But,
But
it was like he was
collapsing.
putting a lot of pressure on Ding to find all the moves, to
Yep.
hold the position. He was a pawn
Exactly.
behind.
some players would just agree to a draw at some point in there, thinking like it's a courteous thing to do. I don't want to flag him, but Maurice
2 minutes. And
Magnus found legitimate chances.
Here we see that first of all, that was the huge blunder right there. E4 because now the e pawn you can't defend.
Just keep
No,
shuffling the
no,
king
no.
around, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But also before this, okay, that's losing. Before this, why didn't he play king e2?
Absolutely.
I mean, you get a
Off the back rack.
that's blitz. That's just right. That's
I don't-
blitz.